Grand Rising, how you doing? This is your coach Renz, and welcome to the show tonight. This is Deconstructing Christianity. I am your coach, Coach Renz, and tonight we're going to talk about a oldie but goodie, and that is the true story behind Ruth and Boaz. If you're finding me for the first time on this channel, we deconstruct Christianity. That is our goal here, to help other people who are in the process of deconstructing. If you look in the comments or in the description of this video, you will see that we have our May the 4th little celebration going on, where we're going to talk about a deep dive into the Noah story, this flood story. So you can join us there for this in-depth webinar on Sunday. Tim, you must have heard me talking about you while we was finishing up dinner. Because I was saying if I start late, Tim gonna be the first one to say something. And there he go. I already got something to say. So if you're finding the show for the first time, and you want to get right to the heart of the conversation, the beginning of the conversation, we start in around that 5 to 10 minute mark, depending upon what questions are asked right before we get started. I want to thank everybody for being here. Thank all my subscription holders on Facebook, the members on YouTube, everybody who donates to the channel in this format. I want to thank everybody who does that. Thank you very much. I would greatly appreciate it. And I thank those who have already signed up for the event on Eventbrite, to repeat that the link is in the bio as well as in the first comments on this video. So I want to thank everybody for who's going to participate on that seminar. There will be many more seminars. New thing. We've been discussing having our meet and greet meetup seminar here in Texas in the first weekend of November. That is going to happen. We were thinking it was going to happen in Corpus Christi, but since we have decided not to move to Corpus Christi, at the beginning of November, it's going to happen here in San Antonio. So go ahead and start putting your money together, save your money. We are going to be having that in San Antonio, a great meet and greet. I'm going to start looking for a location this upcoming week. I'll look for a location, find the location that we can have this seminar and make it easier for everybody to participate. So I look forward to meeting a lot of you guys who I've got to know here online. It would be great to put faces to names. So I look forward to that. And I don't care if it's one person that's coming, or 2 or 3 or 5 or 20 or 100. We're going to have a great time. So tonight's conversation is going to be about Ruth and Boaz, the story that they don't want you to know about it, what the pastors won't teach you about it. And it's a short story, but we're going to delve into it. And after we finish that lesson point, we will open up to any conversations whatsoever. So great to have people here. I see a couple of names I've never seen before, or I'm familiar with, at least to my memory. So welcome Cranky Pants McGee and Mayday. Welcome to the show. Dwayne, what's up? How you doing? Good to see you here. Got my cigar. I was already smoking and got another cigar on the ready. So Tim, don't worry about it. This is not going to be the length of the show tonight. I know that's what you're thinking. What other housekeeping that we need to take care of? There was another housekeeping that was in my mind just a second ago. I can't remember. Hopefully you guys saw the videos that I posted about an hour ago. I posted 2 videos where pretty much good old Cliffy provided us proof that Superman exists, and as well as a video I posted about how faith makes saints into sinners. Those 2 videos posted about an hour ago on Facebook and YouTube. Also on my other YouTube channel, which is a relationship-based channel, which is Lorenzo Reed 369. I did a video on that channel as well. So I look forward to you guys checking that out. I see Dwayne is dealing with a sinus infection. I'm still dealing with mine as well. I probably would be able to get past it a lot quicker if I stopped smoking cigars, but we're not going to stop. You know, my wife had told me that's why she's gotten over her allergies faster than I'm getting over mine. We ain't after. No, sir. Matter of fact, Hell, I think payday is tomorrow. Got to go get some more cigars. Go get our monthly supply. So hopefully everybody's having a great day. So, what's up, Donald? How you doing? So are we ready to get started? Since there were no pre-questions asked about anything, we're going to go ahead and get started with tonight's conversation in dealing with the Ruth and Boaz story. How many of you guys have read the Ruth and Boaz story, or it's been preached to you? And if you read it or it was preached to you before, what was the primary message that you got out of it when you read it, or the primary message that the pastor talked about? Because I don't know about y'all, but if you lived in Atlanta, the Ruth and Boaz story is a huge story that, and not to sound biased, but women love it. But I think if women really understood this story, they wouldn't love this story so much. They will realize how hated they are as far as about the Bible is concerned. So what's the main message that you usually hear concerning the book of Ruth and this Ruth and Boaz story? Wayne said he read it. Mayday said that they read it. James, I haven't went and read that yet to be able to answer that question. My off the top of my head, I remember that's something about Paul telling the people about how he wronged them, but he was wrong about something. But then he also came for the people and not for anything else. But I have to go back and read that one. So, James, give me a day and let me research that one. Let me go back and read it because I don't remember it offhand. Stephanie said, and this is one of the main things that you will hear preached about the Ruth and Boaz story, is telling women, and you gotta understand, what is the bread and butter of any church? Is women are women. And the Boaz story is often preached, especially in Atlanta, is that you don't want a broke man. Tim said Boaz got some ping ping. That's because you heard me talk about it. You ain't heard that in church. God is gonna send you a excuse me. Just the idea of God is gonna send you. Actually, bring this cigar so that the smoke ain't coming right up into my face. That God is gonna send you a great husband. That is another message that is quite often preached from that one. Quite often. Very much so. So, I can hear the sloth saying Boaz, Ruth. All right, so in order to understand this story and what the preachers won't tell you, we're not gonna read the entire story. We're not gonna read the story at all. We're gonna paraphrase our way through the story, hitting the high points, so that we have a good understanding of what this story is about. So for those of you who may have never heard the Boaz and Ruth story, you may have never read the story of Ruth, or if it's been preached to you and what you got out of that preaching, or what they tell you is what Stephanie is saying, that you don't want a broke man. The other one is that God is going to send you a great husband as long as you're faithful, a faithful woman. So I'm going to highlight the parts that the preachers preach and then give you a little bit more info in dealing with it. So when we pick up this story of Ruth and Boaz, it starts out by talking about how so let's hit the main characters first. The main characters, you got Naomi, who is Ruth's mother-in-law. You got Ruth and you got Boaz. Those are your main three characters that you want to focus. That's the main focus in this story. So you still waiting for your great husband? Because you know they always say, I may not want, I want Boaz, not your ass. Robert said he never heard my side of the story. All right, if you got ears to hear. I saw that even though Boaz was not Ruth's deceased husband's brother, there may have been in the Levirate marriage. They may have been in the Levirate marriage because he was her husband's closest male family member. What do you think? That has a little bit to do with it, but there's an extra law that allows for them to be married. So I'll get to that. All right, so our main characters is Naomi, Ruth, Boaz. Oftentimes they talk about Oprah if they want to give another message. So let's go through this story. So the way that this story begins, it begins by talking about Naomi and her husband, and they have 2 sons. They decided to move away from their village, and they went into one of the foreign lands of the Canaanite people. But while they were in this foreign land, Naomi gets her sons to her 2 sons wives. One wife being Oprah, and another wife being Ruth. Now, Ruth was a Moabite, and so she wasn't a Israelite woman. She was a Moabite woman. Oprah, I believe, I'm not sure, but either she was a Moabite or she was some other ite, right? Not 100% sure on her iteness. But they married her. They get married. So the 2 sons are married. Well, the husband dies. Naomi's husband dies. And then the 2 sons, Oprah and Ruth's husbands, also die. So now we have these 3 women. Now, according to the customs of the people, these 3 women cannot inherit property or land, so now they are left destitute. Although the husband had land in the town that they had left, these women could not inherit this land at the time frame, which kind of goes against the idea, because when you look back at the Old Testament in Deuteronomy and Leviticus, Moses told the people that the daughters can inherit the land of their fathers. So you would think that Naomi would have been able to inherit this land since she was the wife, but Moses was a little bit more specific when he was giving out inheritances, and he said that the daughters can inherit land from their father. Now, since Ruth and Oprah were not the daughters of an Israelite father or Naomi's husband, they could not inherit this land. So Naomi, instead of living in destitute among strangers, she decides she's going to go back to her people. And she tells those 2 women that since I do not have a son, and even if I got married, that son would be young and you would have to wait until he comes of age to marry them. He tells the 2 women to go off on their own, go back to their people, go back to the land of their fathers. Well, Oprah is like, bet. And so Oprah leaves. Now, many pastors will start out their message of their sermon right there to say how Oprah didn't have faith and went back to the people of the land that she came from. Yeah, now, he told them they can inherit the land of their fathers as long as they marry another Israelite. So to finish off that thought. So Oprah goes back to the land of her fathers. She leaves Naomi. This is where pastors will start talking about having faith and following that God and so on and so forth. But Ruth says, no, Naomi, I'm going to go with you. And I'm going to make your people my people, and I'm going to make your God my God. So obviously beforehand, Ruth and Oprah never shared the same God that their husbands shared, which was not uncommon back then and still not uncommon today, that you will see people married who don't have the same belief system, even though now we talk about being equally yoked. Meaning, and most people only think about that religiously and not in any other format. So Oprah goes back. Ruth goes with Naomi. They return back to the land that they had came from. But once they get there, they are somewhat pariahs of their town. They live in squalor. They do not have the lands that Naomi's husband had. And so they are living based on the gifts of the people as well as whatever they can scrounge up. So every day, Ruth goes out to the fields of this dude named Boaz. Now, Boaz's wife, it's thought that Boaz's wife had died. Well, it ain't thought, it's Boaz's wife had died. And so Boaz was a lonely, older man. And every night he would go into the wine press, go to the wheat press, and he would get drunk. So as with the rules of the Israelite people, when you bring in your crop, you don't take all of your crop. You leave a little bit for the widows and the orphans. This is a way for their society to be able to take care of the people who are indigent. So every day, Ruth is out there. She's gathering the leftovers from the crops. And Ruth fine. Apparently, Ruth got a little sex appeal about her. And she out there, doing her thing to take care of her Naomi. Now, even though Naomi's supposed to be an older woman, for some reason, Ruth got to go do all the work because must not be too old, because she's still talking about she could have had a child. But Naomi's not doing the work. Ruth is out there doing the work to help feed her and Naomi. And after a while of her gleaning off of gleaning off of what's left over, Boaz started noticing her. Older man who has wealth and power starts noticing this little young chick who's hanging around, taking the leftovers. And apparently she fine. And after a while, Boaz tells his men, hey, when you go get all the hay, all the wheat, I want you to leave a little bit left over. Leave some good wheat left over for Ruth when she comes. I want to give her a little something. Put a little something in her pocket. Help feed her a little bit. Give her a little tasty treat. So Ruth, she sees this. And, and in her naive mind at the time, and you can say what I'm going to tell you a little bit, you can say she's naive about it. Greeting, Grand Rising Norbert King. Welcome here for the first time. So Ruth goes back and tells Naomi, hey, guess what? Boaz took notice of me. Boaz got that money. Boaz took notice of me. And Ruth was like, oh, opportunity. Old lonely widower is noticing this young fineness. So she tells Ruth, what you're going to do is you're going to put on your good makeup. Put your good dress on. It is well known in the town that at the end of the night, when everybody else is going home, good old Boaz goes into the wheat press, gets drunk, and passes out and sleeps in the wheat press. So I want you to go down there and present yourself at the bottom of his feet. Now, what your pastor won't tell you is that this old man is pulling out that little piece of candy out of his pocket to entice this little young girl. That this wasn't a love affair of them having conversations and getting to meet one another. This is not when you go out you out in town and you meet somebody at work, or you meet somebody at the gym or at the grocery store or something like that. You are independently taking care of yourself. They independently take care of themselves. No, this is, I'm broke as fuck. This old man noticed me, and he's trying to slip me a little piece of candy out of his pocket. He's showing his interest in me by providing what is the equivalency of some money. So that would be like if if I saw Stephanie and I say, oh, look at Stephanie, little young cutie. And I rolled up to her house and stuffed a couple of bills in her mailbox, left her an envelope on her windshield. And I kept doing it, leaving her a little piece of money. Now, my interest, my thought process is, as Boaz, is that the way I'm going to attract this little young honey is not by my personality, is I'm going to attract this young honey by giving her some money. That's pretty much, I didn't mean to rhyme, it just came out that way. But that's how I'm going to attract this little young filly. Little money. Feed her a little something, you know. She been eating the leftovers, now I'm going to get her some prime rib. You know what? Okay. Divergent. This reminds me. Let me tell y'all a quick story. So when I got divorced when I was 37 years old, I remember meeting this girl online, and we decided to go out on a date. When we was going out on the date, my original thought was we was going to do dinner and a movie. Well, we got to the Cheesecake Factory, and they had like a 1.5 hour waiting list. The waiting was like an hour and a half. And if we had waited, we would have missed the movie. I rode over to J. Alexander, long waiting list. Every other place, long, even Chili's had a long waiting list. So I apologized to the little girl, and I was like, hey, in order for us to make this movie, I'm gonna have to take you to McDonald's. You know, I'm apologizing. So she was like, oh, that's fine. So we go over to McDonald's. I am not lying about this part. I do understand this is the, as they would say, the God's honest truth. We standing in line at McDonald's. I had to go to the bathroom. So I told her, I said, look, order me a #1 combo. She was like, all right. And before I left, she asked me, could she supersize her meal? I said, sure, no big deal. I was getting ready to take you to Cheesecake Factory. What I care about a supersize. So I go to the bathroom. You know, when I come back, I came up behind her and she was on the phone. I didn't want to interrupt. And this other guy was standing with me, right? She was on the phone with one of her girlfriends, and she was so excited. She was, and literally, almost verbatim, she said, "Ooh, girl, and he let me supersize. He let me supersize my meal. Oh, girl, this might be the one here. He let me." The other dude looked at me, and I looked at him, and then he just smiled and nodded, like, "Yeah, you in there, that, bro. You getting all the poom poom tonight." She was so caught off guard, and it was such a big thing that she was going to be able to supersize a McDonald's meal. This is Ruth. This is the mindset of Ruth at the time. She was getting leftovers. Just getting leftovers. Steve stupid. Steve said he knew a guy like that, but he used chicken and diapers. So the fact that she could, so when he was leaving the real good wheat, that was her supersizing. She was able to get that supersize. So Ruth was impressed. So what the pastors would tell you is that, ladies, you got to be out there doing your thing, working, paying attention to your life, doing what you need to do to survive. And that's true. You should be. But then what they won't tell you and what they won't talk about is that Naomi realized the opportunity here that Boaz was sugar daddying her this entire time. He's sugar daddying her, giving her the supersize on the wheat. And that she, the older woman who's supposed to have the wisdom, is saying, hey, let's take advantage of this. I'm going to pimp you like a madam, and I'm going to send you out here knowing when he's most vulnerable. And that's the thing. Naomi sent Ruth to Boaz, not when he was at work, not when he was making sure the field hands were doing what they were supposed to do. No, she told her, wait, let him go into the wheat press. Let him get drunk. And once he gets drunk, go and submit yourself to him. Ladies, to lay yourself at the bottom of a man's feet during that time frame, and even to this day, because I know some of y'all are into the BDSM, but even to this day, to go and lie at a man's feet is you giving yourself over to total submission. So she goes in after he's drunk. She lies down at the bottom of his feet. When he realizes what she's done, they spend the entire night together. Now, I need every man on here to be honest. Just be honest, fellas. You got a little money. Woman comes and she submits herself to you. Regardless of the morals of your community, it's at night. No one's around. No one sees you. Everybody else is home, asleep, enjoying their evening. Here's this nice little fine chick living on the outskirts of the community. Little ghetto girl. She lays down at the bottom of your feet in the wine press. What you gonna do? What you gonna do? Norbert said he going in. The feet was a thing for the ping ping, but in this rendition of it, the context words around it literally means at the bottom of his feet. And there's another thing about the feet that deals with this whole story that has some little addition. We're gonna get to it. Take the dive, exactly. Gonna buy her the combo. We know what men have been men for millennial after millennial. Men ain't changed. Ladies, I'm telling you something right now. Men are the same in a lot of instances. And when it comes to getting some poom poom, we all the same for the most part. We are all the same. If we have an opportunity, especially when we're older, especially when we don't look as good as we used to look, and here comes some young fine thing. Yeah, we susceptible to the poom poom. In the words of a dude from my cigar lounge, the poom poom is undefeated. Got to get the shakalaka boom boom. That's right. Got to get it. And you can imagine, other than paying some prostitutes, which the story doesn't mention anything about prostitutes, but based on the culture of that day, other than some prostitutes, it is reasonable to think that Boaz hadn't got any ass. Boaz been jerking the chicken. So here come this fine thing laying down. He might have a little whiskey dick going on, but Boaz got him some poom poom from Ruth that night. And one of the indicators that will make you realize that Boaz got that poom poom is that he told Ruth, look, don't tell nobody that you was here. Don't tell anybody what happened here. But I got a plan so that I can marry you, so that I can make you mine. And I know that that means Naomi comes with you, but I got a plan. Bro, don't say nothing. Now, why would a man allow for that? Tell her not to say anything? Because he knows that he's breaking a couple of rules. One, he's breaking the rule of having sex with her, and they're not officially married by their tradition of going through a ceremony and agreements. But he also knows that based on their tradition, he doesn't have first dibs on her. There you go. That's why I got some walk around money. Exactly. Let's see. Creole monkey. Creole monkey. But isn't that what traditional marriage is always about? Always about creature comforts for women, loyalty and submission in return for a man. This heightened sense of romantic altruism is a modern poetic illusion. Yes, traditional marriages are based on contracts, based on money, based on binding families of power together, and is based on the accumulation of wealth. Definitely, yes. It has only in the more recent decades have marriage been a more romanticized thing. But for the most part, it's always, even down to the lowest level, not just a king, queen, rich thing. But if I got 1 acre of, if I got 5 acres of land and you got 5 acres of land, we can come together and, marry our children, and we can work together now and work our properties together, and so that we can buy more land and build a family. So it happens. It's been a normal thing forever. So marriage wasn't about the romance. So that's why there's no romance in this story. This is an agreement, a contractual agreement in order to get out of poverty for these two women. Now, most pastors are going to start telling you, well, they needed to keep the community together, keep vagabonds, and keep the community from degrading and having a bunch of widowers and widowed women and ostracized women in the community. And this is just a way for them to be able to hold the community tight together. That's just a bunch of bullshit. So back to the story. So Boaz tell her to keep it hush hush. Don't tell nobody about what we just did, girl. And she must have put some good poom poom on him. But he old anyway, so sometimes when you're an older man, the poom poom man ain't got to be good. As long as you're getting some and she look good, that's all you care about, right? I've never been at that stage, and hopefully, and I don't think I ever get to that kind of a stage where I don't care how good the poom poom is. Poom poom got to be good. So she put it on. He tells her to be quiet. Don't tell nobody. So then there's a meeting. Old Boaz calls a meeting. And when he calls the meeting, it's a meeting of all the older men, the elders of the community of this village, because the village is being ran by elders, not a king or anything like that, right? So, good old Boaz, slick Rick, slick Dick Willie Boaz, gets the men together. Now, the oldest man in the community, he's the oldest. He has first rights to Naomi or Ruth. He has first rights. He got dibs because he's the eldest elder. So Boaz is bringing up this. He said, "Well, we got a problem. Yeah, we got trouble right here in River City, right here. That starts with P and ends with stands pool. So he got a problem. And apparently nobody else has been paying attention or care the fact that Naomi and Ruth had returned, but he's bringing this information up. So Sweet Dick Willie Boaz tells him, like, well, hey, you have first rights, and we got to make sure that the community is taken care of. So you, sir, need to marry this young girl, Ruth, this Moabite woman, Ruth. Now, since she's a young woman, now you notice he didn't say you got to marry Naomi, you got to marry Ruth, but you got to marry this young lady, Ruth. And with her age, you're going to have to produce children. Now, I know that all your children are grown and doing their thing, and you're of advanced age, but you're going to have produce a little baby with Ruth. So, hold on, y'all, hold on. Find one and bring one on the show, and I gladly debate them, but they scared to come here. So just hush up and listen to the story. That's funny to me. It's like, I can't debate anything you say, so yes, smoking man. I gotta make my little jabs. You know what you sound like to me? Yes, smoking man, you know it all. But anyway, I'm in a good mood. So Boaz is telling him, now, if you want to ever con somebody, then tell them that they have to do something that could be to their benefit. Because first he tells them, hey, when Naomi and her husband left, they left all this land. Her sons died, so there's no inheritors of the land. They married women. One of them went back to her own town, but this other Moabite woman came with Naomi. Now they're living on the outskirts of town, and they're gleaning the wheat chaff like the poor people. And we don't need to have that. And somebody needs to take care of this land. So, hey, bruh, you the oldest, you need to take care of this. Yes, you're going to get some land out of this deal, but you got to marry the young girl, and the young girl going to want a baby. So now you 60, 70 years old, and you need to buck up, buddy, and impregnate this young girl and raise another child, even though your children are all grown. So he presented the story to the elder in such a way to make him say, yes, this is good, but look at what troubles you have to take. That's why he is Sweet Big Willie Boaz, because he totally slicked this man out. And the old man, I forgot his name, he contemplates it. But because the last thing that was said is that he got to raise another baby, he's like, it'd be nice to have that land, but do I really want to deal with what a young woman wants? She's gonna want to have fun. She's gonna want more clothes. She's gonna want to do this, that. She's gonna want a baby, and I don't want to do all that. And so the old man is like, nah, I already get my children grown and my business good. I'm retired in a certain way. I really don't want to deal with it. So Boaz leans back. Take a nice pull on his cigar. Then he tells him, tell you what, I'm younger than you. I can still do the baby thing. Don't worry about it. I'll take her off your hands. Basically convincing this man that I'm doing you a favor. Because I'm doing you a favor. Now, this is how they seal the deal. This is where feet come back into it. Boaz takes off his left shoe and hands it to him and proclaims what the deal is. The deal is that I will marry Ruth and I will gain the inheritance of our brother who left us, and I will take care of the land, and the land becomes mine, but also I'll marry Ruth, and I will then also take care of Naomi. Right? Yeah, it does. Kind of reminds you of Tom's story with the painting of the fence. Tricking them jokers into thinking that it was a great time and somebody else painted the fence. So, Boaz then he marries Ruth in the proper way that you're supposed to in their community, even though they already did the shakalaka boom boom. And then, of course, they have a baby. That baby is Obadiah. Obadiah has Jesse. Jesse has David. David has Solomon, and so on up the line to create the whole Jesus narrative. So that's pretty much the story. Now, the pastor is going to tell women that you need to wait for your Boaz. All these broke jokers that Ruth was like, I'm gonna go with you, Naomi, even though she could have went back home to her father and went back to the Moabite people. I'm going with you. I'm gonna be with you. Now, mind you, the Moabite people are cousins to the Israelites, because when Lot had sex with his first daughter, his oldest daughter, she had the child Moab, who is supposed to be the father of the Moabite people. Boaz is supposed to be from Abraham's line. So they are distant relatives in this whole situation. It's not direct incest, but it's distant relative, clan incest. So women are told to wait for your Boaz, and so let's think about who is Boaz. wait for your older man who leads with his wallet, takes your poom poom, and then secretly devise a conniving way to bring you into the fold. That's Boaz. Exactly, Creole monkey. Once you delve deep into this Bible, you realize it's not as pristine as they try to make it. So all you ladies out there who are Christian, if the man ain't got no money, you need to leave him alone. Thank you, Raph, for donating a membership to the channel. I appreciate that. So I need all you women to understand that. Based on the Bible, if the man ain't got no damn money, if he does not lead with his wallet, if he is not if he's not Axe, I love the show Billions. If he ain't acting like Axe, Bobby Axelrod, then you need to leave him alone. He's not your husband. So you want to leave that if you're not doing that. Now, men, the lesson you should take from this story, no matter what's going on, if you see a poor, destitute woman, you need to leave with your wallet. You need to get out there and make some money and leave with your wallet. And not lead any other kind of way. Lead with your wallet. Your character, your personality, how nice you are, that shit don't matter. If you ain't got no money, you can't get no honey. That's how men, that's what you're supposed to be. Because that's what they're telling the women in church they need to look for. They Boaz. That's right. Cranky pants. If you got some money, you ain't getting a Boaz. You the Boaz. But you got to have some money. Now, the other thing, women, you want to act like Ruth. Then, in order to attract the man, go do the least amount of work just to survive. That's all you need to do is just survive. It's funny if it just dawned on me. A video that I did on my relationship channel, this woman was saying that women aren't broke, men are broke. If a woman can cure her brokenness instantly by finding an older man, and then she will have money instantly. That's the Boaz and Ruth story. I wish I would have thought about that when I made that video yesterday. So women, you're supposed to act, be destitute. Don't try to go out here and achieve. What the hell you need to achieve for? Your comeuppance is based on a man. And when you meet that man, totally submit at the bottom of his feet, and all this bullshit about 90 days and all that. Nope, you need to be giving up the poom poom day one. Day one, you need to have that gluck gluck 3000 going down on him. All right? If you're sucking, you need to be swallowing. You need to be doing whatever freaky dicky he want. You need to do it and keep it in house. Don't tell nobody. Don't go back telling your girlfriend. Don't tell nobody about it. And you need to keep it in the family. Keep it in the family. Boaz would have been like a older cousin to her, older uncle or older cousin to her husband, to her deceased husband. So all this 90-day rule, we ain't waiting, we ain't doing no 90. If a man got money, you need to give up the poom poom day one. Stop playing around. He don't need to wine and dine you. Ladies, y'all are not the prize. Boaz, the man, is the prize. Y'all not the prize. The unity is not the prize. And that's actually what I talked about in that other video, is that the unification, the relationship is the prize. Neither man nor woman is the prize, but the relationship is the actual prize. So, but in this story, Boaz, the man with some money, is the prize. So, and what's funny is that in today's world, that is becoming more and more the acceptable thing, is that men with money is the prize. And that if a man don't have no money, or doesn't have, is not making six figures or above, then he is not worth being with. And that if he ain't taking you out, to the top restaurants day one, he's not worth being with. His character, his mind, his intelligence, none of those things matter. It's all about the money that he brings into your life. So if you ain't gold digging, then you're not a good miner. You're not prospecting right. Now, the pastor's not going to tell you about that. The pastor's going to tell you that you wait for a good man, a man who sees you out there working hard and sees your value. That out of that whole situation, when you do get together, you're going to have children, and that children is going to be of a royal lineage. That you're going to have your Obadiah, who's going to have Jesse, who's then going to have David, who's then going to have Solomon. That your children will be royalty in the kingdom of God. Say, I want a good-hearted cat daddy that will help me foster kitties. Now, in that story, it was nothing about having a good heart. In the story of Ruth and Boaz, the heart is not part of the equation. If anything, it is the heart and mind of a man who will connive his way to get what he wants. That in our world today, that woman would have been able to inherit that property. So, what do you guys think of the story? You think I'm just making shit up? But if you read that story, what do you think of that story? Do you think I'm off base of how that story is written? Because this book is supposed to be part of the inspired, inerrant word of God. This story is not supposed to be an allegory or any bullshit like that. This story is supposed to be a literal story. Because if you say the story is allegory, then the Ruth never existed, which she didn't really, but Ruth didn't exist. Boaz didn't exist. If Ruth and Boaz don't exist, then Obadiah don't exist. Then Jesse doesn't exist. Then David does not exist. Then Solomon does not exist. Then Jesus does not exist. Yep. The Bible has many effed up stories like that. The Bible is the worst place to go get your stories of how you're supposed to find who you're going to marry. I mean, the Jacob story and how he got his 4 wives is just as bad. Story is exactly how you summed it up, and that's how I received it when I read it. Exactly. No, sir, cousin. No, sir, cousin. No, sir, cousin. If it's a metaphysical story, then Jesus don't exist. If it's a metaphysical story, then David don't exist. Solomon does not exist if it's metaphysical. So if it's metaphysical, then that means that none of those people existed. So if none of those people existed, then none of their lineage exists. No, sir. And yes, Gabriel is my cousin. So for those who wonder why I called him cousin, because Gabriel is my cousin. See, to get a metaphysical dictionary, then what you're saying is that the people who wrote the story had no idea what they were writing. And then that the story lived for a couple thousand years with no one understanding this story. So this guy had them write down a story that he knew that people wouldn't understand for a couple thousand years, but it's for us to understand it that way. No. These stories were meant to be understood by the people who wrote the story at the time frame that they wrote it. And they believed that they were writing their history. Now, if they are metaphysical, then none of those stories are true. None of those people existed. So then Jesus don't exist. The God Yahweh then doesn't exist either. Gabriel. This story was written before Rome ever came into power or in existence. This story is in the Septuagint, which was written by the Greeks who were making a Greek copy of the Torah. No, sir, not going for that one. Yes, this is from the book of Ruth. But the book of Ruth is not a banned book. You'll find the book of Ruth in the Hebrew Bible, which is the Torah. You'll find it in the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Torah. No, it's not. And you find it in the Bible that has been accepted by Christians. We had that discussion when we was in Atlanta, dude. I use Jesus as just a common name that most people understand. His name was Yeshua. His name was Joshua in English. Come on now. Jesus was an interpolation. Right. And they were just writing their history and how they thought their history should have played out. These people actually had no evidence of any of these people existing. They were just writing a history while they were under word of mouth under Assyrian rule. And then it finally wasn't written down until they were under Persian rule. And Brenda, I know you have a metaphysical Bible, but again, a metaphysical Bible is like Disney. So Disney took all the stories of Snow White, Cinderella, and all these stories, Rapunzel. The original stories are very different from what Disney then made their story fit into a child's mind. So a metaphysical Bible has nothing to do, truthfully, with the people who wrote it when they wrote it. Have I ever done a break? I'm sure that we have. I'm sure I have. It's been a while, but I'm sure that I have. But this book This is one of those things that people try to do today to be able to accept this book as historical and or true, is that they change the meaning of it to make it fit into today's mentalities and today's moralities. But the moment you do that, I don't know, have you guys ever read Hansel and Gretel, the real story? And the real story of Hansel and Gretel is gruesome as hell. It's a very gruesome story. But in order to make it palatable for people in the Western world, they change it up. They make it different. And they say, oh, we're going to make this story a little bit different. They change up Cinderella. They change up all these stories. But if you want to know what the author was thinking, you go back and you read the original in the mindset of the author. Let me correct you on this, Joseph. Joseph is saying that truthfully, this man is a liar about Jesus Christ never existing in human history, when there are literally 90% of historians in modern times literally agree that he did exist and was crucified. The Jesus that I say don't exist is the Jesus of the Bible. It does not exist. If you, and I know that you have, Joseph, because you've been on my page for a while, then you have heard me say multiple times that Josephus wrote about 4 different Jesuses. There are 4 different Yeshuas that Josephus wrote about in his chronicles. None of them are the actual Jesus of the Bible. Some have certain traits of the Jesus of the Bible: flipping tables, claiming to be the Messiah, being a rabble-rouser of the Jewish people from the Romans. But the biblical version of Jesus, who walked on water, fed 6,000 people with a 2-piece fish sandwich from KFC, healed the legions and cast them into the pigs, and the pigs ran off the mountain, died and was resurrected, that Jesus don't exist at all. And historians do not say that the biblical Jesus exists. So no. Gabriel, I know you're not on my channel that often, but most of the stories from the Old Testament do not come from Egypt. Most of the stories from the Old Testament are Canaanite, Sumerian, and Akkadian stories. Most of them come from that culture. They don't come from, some do come from Egypt or have similarities to Egypt, but most of them come from the Sumerian, Akkadian, and Canaanite culture, not the Egyptian culture. Only small aspects come from the Egyptian culture. I guess we're in that part where we're just talking about anything. The Book of Enoch was banned from, so the Book of Enoch, which wasn't written until about the 2nd and 3rd century BCE, one, it was written incredibly late for the Judaic people and Christians. The book was actually very popular up until about the 3rd century in what would become Christendom, other than the people up in Anatolia and the people, well, the Orthodox Eastern Church and the Ethiopians kept it. But the book was declared heresy or banned, or not included, I should say. I'm gonna say not included because it was a popular book, which is why it's quoted in your modern day Bibles. But it was taken out because it was recognized to be just simply fan fiction, that there was nothing that would support it, and it didn't follow the rest of the Bible. What did you just like copy and paste and just move it around a little bit? 90% of historians agree that Jesus Christ of the Bible. No, they do not. No, they do not. I ain't even gonna waste my time dealing with stupidity. But they and I like how they always say that 90%, 90% of them do. You heard somebody else say that, and so now you're just quoting and saying the same stupid shit. I mean to say it that way. There is no 90% believe the Jesus of the Bible existed. Come on. Like you got people like Bart Ehrman who will say, was there, do they believe that a itinerant preacher in the early first century was walking around calling himself the Messiah, teaching a different version of Judaism? Yes. Was he walking on water? No. Was he born of a virgin? No. They don't agree with that part. At all. You research any religious studies program for almost any non-biblical college, and they do not teach that the Jesus of the Bible actually existed. Exactly. 90% of people believe that the spaghetti monster has giant meatballs. You got a problem with that? You got a problem with that, Tim? I ain't got to be here all night. I will take this cigar out on the front porch and enjoy it. Justin Martyr never mentioned the four Gospels mid-second century. The originals, which were copies, were not assigned those names until around 175 AD. Originally anonymous writer. Exactly. When Justin Martyr referred to Gospels, he called it the wisdom of the apostles. He never called them by any name. It wasn't until, and actually I think it was 180, 182, when Irenaeus then gave them the names of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. You are absolutely right. John Kapansky. I'm probably saying that wrong. Where my cousin at? Come get you one of these like you did in Atlanta. When me, you, and my brother was sitting on the back porch smoking. Come on. I heard her. Yeah, I like that. I like that. I like that. I like that. I told you, I ain't smoking that shit you smoke. I'm sorry, y'all. You know, I see family on here. I gotta talk to family a little bit. Anyway, all right, right here. Back to the subject matters at hand here. Ah, so we go live every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook and YouTube. You see, I like when people say something like this. An agnostic teaching the Bible is like a black Trump supporter watching him destroy black history. Apples and oranges. Hell, it ain't even apples and oranges. That's fucking apples and cows. Because I used to be a Christian. I used to believe in the Bible. I used to teach the Bible. I was thoroughly in debt in the depths of the Bible. But after researching the Bible and studying it for decades, I realized that the Bible is not what it had been made out to be. So yes, I can teach the Bible. But here's the thing. No one said you had to be here to listen. No one's forcing you. It wouldn't hurt my feelings to see the number of people viewing this right now go down. Wouldn't bother me at all. I often wonder, why do y'all even show up? Hold on. Now I would have to research this. That Tertullian was baptized by Montanus, an Illuminist, who was the founder of the Illuminati. Now, I didn't know that there was an Illuminati before John Weishaupt started the Illuminati. So that would be new to me. But that's something worth looking up. Exactly. Most people who have, here's the difference. When a Muslim is against the Bible, it is because they are Muslim. They were never Christian. They never studied the Bible in that way. They never studied it to be Christian. Most people who are agnostics or atheists from Christianity came from Christianity. Now you do have agnostics and atheists who came out of Islam. If you go to their pages, they're deconstructing Islam, the Quran. So most of us who have walked away, we walked away from the religion that we truly believed in. All right, let me know. Let me know. And what's funny to me is most of the people who believe in Christianity have never read the book fully. And even for those who've read it, have never studied the book. Right. Not one of the 500 witnesses of the ascension wrote anything of down or knew someone who could. All of them who, this claim of 500 people witnessing is something that somebody told Paul, according to Paul's own writing. Not one witness told him this. Somebody told him that other people said that. They saw it. Now, in no circles of academia does that stand up. Send me a reminder to my email, which is masteringyou, the number 10 at gmail.com. Yeah, there is literally nothing that could verify the overwhelming majority of the Bible outside of the Bible. The only thing that you can verify in the Bible is certain kings or certain cities and countries. But beyond that, there's absolutely nothing in the Bible that is verifiable. So, and what makes the Bible, and this is why the Bible can be transformed into anything that anybody want it to be. And it has a history of that. Black people have transformed the Bible into what Black people want it to be. Esoterics transform it into what they want it to be. Europeans make it what they want it to be. Asian people are making it what they want it to be. If this is supposed to be the inerrant word of God, inspired by God, the book should be the same. And I love when racist people want to say that anything written by white people and Asians or Greeks is all racist and all this, that, and the third. But there are plenty of Black scholars who have read the older versions, read it in the Greek, the Koine Greek, read it in the Aramaic. And then certain things are just certain things. The Meneptah Stele is the Meneptah Stele. The Elephantine Stele is the Elephantine Stele. Archaeology is just archaeology. Where is this? So the Babylonian Talmud does have some of the stories from that did make their way into the Bible, and some of the concepts made their way into the Bible. And that's why I say, like, the Bible, especially the Old Testament and even the New Testament, is a Mediterranean story. It's more of a Mesopotamian story when you're dealing with the Old Testament, and becomes more of a Mediterranean story as you get closer to the fourth and the fifth and fourth century BCE. And when you base your belief on the color of somebody's skin, then you've already tainted your mentality of what you're willing, if you've already tainted whether or not you can accept truth or not, you know. And see, this is a lower vibrational thought. I want everybody to see this as an example. This is a lower vibrational thought. Archaeology is archaeology, but when the racists get hold of it, what do you think is going to happen? So when the Meneptah Stele, when people deciphered when this Meneptah Stele was deciphered, they said that the King Pharaoh Meneptah kicked ass in a bunch of cities as he was dealing with revolts around his Egyptian empire, especially in the Levant. And when he went and kicked some of these city-states' ass, he talks about the fact that he also whooped the ass of a nomadic tribe of people called Israelites who worship Yahweh. It's the first time an Israelite is mentioned in history. There's nothing older than the Meneptah Stele that mentions Israelites. But I guess some racists must have did something to it. You see what I'm saying? When you come at it with that mentality, you are unwilling to accept it. So now, if there was no such thing as an Israelite prior to Meneptah whooping their ass, and let's give them 100 years of existing. Then prior to that, where are the Israelites? Where's the Israelite kingdoms? Where's the evidence of Abraham coming into Egypt? Where's the evidence of the Exodus? Where's the evidence of any of those things? There isn't any, because they didn't exist. They did not exist until somewhere around 1300, so that they can get their ass whooped and be named in 1200. The Torah is just old Mesopotamian stories that was converted to fit into a people who were creating their own history called the Israelites. And you can see how it went through a lot of different storytelling before it got written down and edited in the 4th and 5th century BCE. Oh my gosh. This dude's still stuck on this. How I'm gonna be an ass for a second here. How stupid do you have to be? And this is not ignorance, this is stupidity. Do you have to be that when you read straight from Google AI, the vast majority of historians, including those specializing in ancient history, New Testament studies, and religious history, agree that Jesus existed as a historical figure? So, do you not understand what as a historical figure means? John Henry existed as a historical figure, but did not carve through a mountain in one fucking day. Paul Bunyan existed as an historical figure, but did not get into a fight and create the Great Lakes. Johnny Appleseed existed as a historical figure, but did not plant apple orchards running barefoot all the way from Maine to freaking Washington State. Do you understand what as a historical figure means? Because evidently you are too blinded by your religious views to understand what that means. It means exactly what I said earlier, that a preacher walking around 1st century claiming to be the Messiah, sure. And based off of that story of that person, the narrative became a big fish story. I mean, good night. Good, my goodness. I just, I understand that you need this religion, that Christians need this religion in order to make them feel validated. Okay, do your thing. But I don't give a damn. I don't need your agreement. But what I can't stand is stupidity. I can accept ignorance. I am ignorant of a lot of things. There are some astrophysics that I am very ignorant of. I don't understand things at the level of some of these astrophysics. These mathematicians, I'm not there. But I'm not stupid. I'm not stupid enough to sit here and say, oh no, you astrophysics are all wrong. Exactly. A man that lived in a whale, the belly of a whale for 3 days, or a big fish. Yeah. It makes them not be able to see anything beyond the nonsense that they have been duped into believing. Mm-mm. Throughout history, even after the Bible, very few true alchemists use the Bible. The Bible has very little alchemy in it. A true alchemist would be more apt to use the Gospel of Thomas before they would use the canonized Bible. The Bible is not a book of alchemy. The science in the Bible is so incorrect, so wrong, that a true alchemist would never use the Bible. uh, and have you noticed that none of the Bible people on here can argue the points? They never argue a point. Exactly. They'll use the Corpus Hermeticum or the Emerald Tablets, not the Doriel's Emerald Tablets of Thought. Doriel's Emerald Tablets of Thought does have parts of the actual Emerald Tablets in it, but Doriel goes off into some woo-woo shit as well. So I would find the Emerald Tablets or just read the Corpus Hermeticum if you're studying alchemy before I would use the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, the Atlantean. I actually did a video about that, a live about that a couple weeks back. I'm not even going to say anything. I'm not even going to say anything. I'm just going to let that ignorance flow. Let it flow. I would like for, it would be for the Christians. Prove Jesus walked on water. Prove it. Or do you have to take it on faith, meaning that you have no facts to prove it? Prove that he fed 5,000 people with a two-piece fish sandwich from KSC. Or do you have to take it on faith with no facts? Prove that he healed people of demons and sicknesses and all these things. Because according to Tacitus, Vespasian, while he was in Egypt before he went and took over and became the emperor of Rome, Tacitus, under the power of Serapis, healed a lame man by stepping on his hand, healed a blind man by spitting into some dirt and rubbing it in his eyes. So according to Tacitus, the Roman historian, Serapis empowered Vespasian to do some of the very same healings that Jesus supposedly did. So I want to know, because for about as much proof as you have that Vespasian healed these people under the power of Serapis, is the proof that you have for Jesus performing miracles. Wait, are you not paying attention? Hell no, I don't believe Tacitus. In the sense of miracles and shit, no. Did Vespasian go to Egypt before he went to Rome? Sure. Did he perform miracles while he was in Egypt? No. But what do y'all think? before you make comments? Do you think? Oh, no, not think. Do you listen? Because I said, about as much as you have proof of Vespasian doing that through the writings of Tacitus is about the same as you have of the proof of Jesus. And since I have said that I do not accept that Jesus did any of those things, then why would I accept that Vespasian did any of those things? There's a logical process that was presented that seems to escape the listening ear. Did you not understand why I made the comparison? Because neither one are valid. That's the comparison. And Christians like to throw up that Tacitus, he is an outside source that verifies Jesus. No, he's an outside source that verified that people believed in Jesus. Just a question, if we're all God's children, why are the Israelites God's chosen people? Isn't that like picking your favorite child, which most would say they love them all equally? So you have to follow the trail of this. In the beginning part, in the Old Testament, all the people were not God's people. All the people were not Yahweh's or El's people. Only the Israelites became the chosen people of Yahweh. So when, like in, I think it's Ezekiel, where it says, I think it's Ezekiel, I might be wrong by where it said, but when Elion gave out the portions to all the other B'nai Elohim, to Yahweh was given the Israelite people. Everybody else, all the other B'nai Elohim got land, and whomever was living in that land. So for Yahweh, who later on gets merged with El, the Israelites were their only people. It wasn't until the Jesus character comes up, and later in his ministry, at that, very late in his ministry, did he say that you are to teach all the people of all the world, but that the Gentiles were then grafted in, and that was more of a Paulinian style of Christianity, that everybody became God's people. So the Old Testament God, yes, no, well, all the people weren't God's children, only the Israelites. The New Testament Jesus God is everybody. The Israelites are still the chosen people, and everybody else is Yahweh's stepchildren. You know, and so because of that, that's how you get that. That's how they get that idea. Right. And that's why Yahweh sent his people to slaughter everybody to take the land, because he only had a people. I just explained the whole thing about the Old Testament God. So why would you even ask that question? He decided that those are his only people. Now, understand this, James. The books of Moses were not written prior to the other books of the Bible. All these things were merged together and put together in around the 5th century BCE. So that's around your 400s BCE. So now they're merging all these stories together. You said if we're all God's children, as an agnostic, I'm not saying that we are, I'm explaining what the book says and how it came together. So is it right for black and whites to have different thought processes? If this is a true God, you shouldn't have different thought processes. But because of how the book has been utilized throughout history, it is normal. It will be a normal process for people of different races, which really is more about nationalities, to have different thought processes on it. But they shouldn't. They should all have the same thought process if this is the inerrant word of the true God. But since we know it is actually a Mediterranean developed God based on some people who were separating themselves from the Canaanites and then manifesting their own history and manifesting their own gods, the way this book should be thought about is that it is a Mediterranean religion that has been adopted by people from different parts of the world. No, not necessarily. If you believe in this God, then you get second, you get to sit at the end of the table. You can't sit toward the front. You get to sit at the back of the table, and you still get in if you believe this nonsense. If they really read it without rose-colored lenses on, but they don't. You see, if you research something, but you already have decided what the research is going to mean, then you're not actually researching. If you're reading a story and you've already decided what the story, how the story is going to come out, then you're going to miss key parts of the story and not truly understand what the story is about. And this is how Christians are. This is how anybody who's been indoctrinated into any religion is, that they're going to believe whatever the teacher or the population who believes in this is going to suggest and say. A true researcher goes into the reading of something without a landing point. But yeah, every other animal sticks with their own kind except humans. Humans would destroy their own kind and everybody else. And this is actually a perfect example. Truly, let me be dramatic. Truly, Lorenzo, a guy named Michael on YouTube channel, is Aspiring Philosophy, has made a video giving tons of evidence that the Torah was written by Moses and written way earlier than people are saying. And truly, Lorenzo, this is what I desire to believe. So, of course, when Michael of Inspiring Philosophy made a video giving this evidence, I was very susceptible to this evidence because it's what I want to believe. And since Michael of Truly Inspiring Philosophy, who already agrees with what I desire to believe, said it, then it must be true. Truly, Lorenzo. That's the mind. That is why the human mind, as brilliant as it is, can also be persuaded to damn near believing anything. I mean, so I guess Moses wrote about his own death after he died. Moses wasn't present during none of the shit that was happening in Genesis, but somehow Moses knew everything that happened in Genesis. But I guess God inspired him to write Genesis. But yet he wrote two different creation stories in chapter 1 and chapter 2 of Genesis that have contradictions to them. But I guess he didn't mind writing the two stories. See? But he could have wrote about his own death because you want to believe that. You want to believe it. Yet there is zero evidence of Moses' existence. Where is the economic crash that multiple societies in the Mediterranean would have been writing about if the Exodus story had happened? Do you believe in a creator? No. There's not enough sufficient evidence for me to believe in a creator. If evidence is brought forward that would positively demonstrate a creator, I'm fine. But there is not enough evidence. Man, the Holy Spirit ain't that much your feelings. And I would be rude and say what I think about feelings, but ain't that much your feelings. Here's the thing that's funny to me. The Holy Spirit guides me. It's the same shit that Muslims say. It's the same shit that people who believe in the Indus religion say. It's the same stuff that everybody of every religion says. Ifa, oh, the ancestors told me. The ancestors told me. And it's funny, now you got a bunch of Christians, especially black Christians, the ancestors told me, but they Christian. All the time. It's your feelings. It's how you feel. And at the end of the day, your feelings don't matter. Your feelings matter not. That's like when I used to get into arguments with people. Like, let's say that's a perfect example. So anytime I was like dating someone or in the cigar lounge, we having conversations, people like, well, I feel like, you already done messed up. Because your feelings don't matter. Feelings don't matter. That's their go-to. If there's earth and air, there must be a creator. Sure. And billions of other planets were created. Or let me not say created, because that gives them a little, so he said created. Billions of other planets and stars and all these things are in existence. Must be a creator. Couldn't happen Couldn't happen naturally because of the singularity. You're getting emotional. That I will agree with you, Patel. We know humans didn't create Earth. You're absolutely right. Humans didn't create Earth. But humans created gods. Because whether you realize it or not, you're an atheist towards Allah. You're an atheist towards Brahma. You're an atheist towards the sky people. You're an atheist towards Quetzalcoatl. You're an atheist towards every other creator god that's ever been mentioned by any person. This is their justification for why there are two creation stories. That Genesis 2, 7 through 25 is more about what took place on day 6 of creation. No. When you read Genesis 1, he said that he created everything, and he created it that day, and it was good. But if that was the case, all the animals were created, I believe, on day 5 or 4 or 5. But then in the Genesis chapter 2, the animals were then created and brought to Adam. It doesn't fit, and does it? Y'all got more of this cigar than I expected to give y'all. I mean, according to the Kemetic people, you know, Ra created everybody. According to the Aztecs, then man was created from from tears and corn and dirt. So who are you to say that Quetzalcoatl didn't create you, or the two brothers? Is it the two brothers? I think it's the two brothers created. Hmm. And that's some bullshit, Stephanie. People always want to offer thoughts and prayers, instead of actually reaching out, sitting with someone, talking to someone, helping them understand why their life is not as bad as they think that their life is. Instead of working with them to find out what troubles they're going through. Instead, offer thoughts and prayers. Your thoughts and prayers ain't worth shit if there's no action. Yes, the Sumerians created Enlil. Now, was Enlil maybe based on somebody? Sure, could have been, but they created Enlil. Was it based on some previous civilization before the Younger Dryas flood? Could have been, but they created the Enlil that's living in space and flying around and controlling the weather and all that shit. Yeah, they created that dude. Damn, you working that late shift, bro? All right, man, be easy. Um, in the latter part of the year, we might be passing through. Um, so I'll let you know if we do. Oh, you about to go work out. I understand that. I thought you want to work. I got it. You're going to work out. Good. You need to get some size on your little fella. Little fella, get some size on your little fella. Get some muscles on your little fella. Sorry, y'all. I think you think how much I pick on y'all. You can imagine how much I pick on family. Hold on, let me check something real quick. Okay, sorry about that. Sorry about that. Matthew was written in Hebrew. No, most scholars and the only copies of Matthew that we have were written in Greek. There are some more recent scholars who are suggesting, um, are they recent scholars? Were they recent? No, that was old. Oh, that was back in the day people. There are some people back in the day who say that it possibly could have been written in Hebrew, but we have zero copies of Matthew in Hebrew. And it was most likely written in Greek, is what most scholars have come to an agreement on. You do have some outliers who are saying that it might have been written originally in Hebrew, but there's no proof of that. Just had to throw it up there. You see, that's when people want this story to be what they want it to be. You got zero proof of Matthew being written in Hebrew, but yet you have a couple of people on the outskirts who are who make that suggestion, and yet they want to run with it. They want to run with the ones that fit their paradigm. Yeah, that's what I said. I corrected it. I corrected it. It's because I remember the person who was saying that his name started with a P. His name started with a P, who was saying that older versions might have been written in Hebrew, but that was a might have been. That was not a it was. I got proof, got copies of it, none of that. So you have no proof of that. And here's the thing. Here's one of the concepts that you have to understand about Judea during that time frame, during that first century. Because they had been previously ruled by the Greeks from about 400 BCE, and then the Romans came after the Greeks. The common language to write in, if you could write in Judea under Roman control, would have been Greek. You didn't write in Aramaic, or you didn't write in Hebrew. You wrote things in Greek because they considered Greek to be the language of intelligence. So it's unlikely that if someone was writing something of importance during the first century, that it would have been written in Hebrew. It would have been written in Greek. This is why most scholars will accept, and the fact that the oldest versions of Matthew, oldest pieces of, and the oldest versions are like little scraps. It's not like a whole book, are written in Greek. But all of the New Testament, they haven't found any of them that are written in Hebrew. Let me make sure. Has any of the New Testament been found that was written in Hebrew? No, none of the New Testament was written in Hebrew. The New Testament was primarily written in Koine Greek, while some portions of the Old Testament, were written in Aramaic, and some scholars have speculated that parts of the New Testament might have been initially composed in Aramaic. There is no evidence to suggest that any of the New Testament books were originally written in Greek. Now, one day, maybe they'll find some of it that's written in Aramaic. And then that's a whole nother conversation. But until they do, it's not a conversation. I'm curious. Hold on. What language was the Dead Sea Scrolls written in?
The Dead Sea Scrolls were written in a few different languages, primarily Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek.
All right, so you got your Dead Sea Scrolls that were written in that, but they don't include your New Testaments. What are the books of the Dead Sea Scrolls?
The Dead Sea Scrolls contain a vast collection of writings, including biblical texts, apocryphal works, and sectarian documents.
I want the list, damn it. I want the list of books. Because we're going to make sure here. I know some of the books off the top of my head, but I want the list. I see the book of Enoch, the book of Jubilees, the book of Tobit, Wisdom of Sirach, Psalms 152 and 155, Community of Rulers, the War Scroll, the Perisher on Habakkuk, the Rule of the Blessings. I ain't seeing any New Testament writings. I don't see none of the New Testament books. Isaiah. Yeah. The Great Isaiah Scroll, Thanksgiving Hymns, the Great Genesis Apocryphon. Yeah. Letter of Jeremiah. Don't see any New Testament books written in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Yeah, it's the oldest Torah, I believe you're right, is the Septuagint, which is written in Greek. But the Dead Sea Scrolls are, I believe, older than the oldest Septuagint. I think it's the oldest copy. The Septuagint was written long before, but as far as having some of that in the Dead Sea Scrolls, they are like the Isaiah scroll was written in Aramaic, possibly. So, but yeah, the oldest one is written in Koine Greek. What does that have to do with anything? Hell, the original findings at Nag Hammadi, some of those were burned by the Egyptians because they didn't know what it was and they would just burn it and using it for kindling. What's your point? So understand me correct. Let me make sure I explain this correctly, Joseph. When I say there are two creations accounts, I'm not saying that your God created twice, but there are two versions of that creation, is what I'm saying. All right. So this is why there's the idea of the J text and the P text, or in this case, the E text and the P text that are describing this story, because the linguistics are very different. And then the story, the elements of the story are also different. But that leaves a contradiction if these are supposed to be inspired by God and are supposed to be inerrant. There should not be any contradictions within the story. So they don't believe that the first chapter of Genesis and the second chapter of Genesis was written by the same person. And Genesis chapter 2 is accepted to have been written first before Genesis chapter 1. So that you understand what I'm saying correctly. And of course, when you said Jericho, I think his name, what is his name? Yeah, Jericho Walker. People have destroyed writings throughout time and memorial for their own political reasons. But the Bible has been used by people of all cultures to control people. Hell, right now, you go to Africa, they're using the shit out. Black people are using the Bible like a champ to control and manipulate people. The fact that people use a literature to control people is nothing new, and we can be in full agreement of that. But to insinuate that this is only done by the Europeans is a bunch of bullshit. Are you familiar with the book, Giving Account of Jesus' Childhood? Yeah, one in particular is the Infancy Gospel of Thomas. And yeah, he pushing little kids off the roof and all kinds of shit and telling lies. But yes, actually, I should reread that one and do a live on that one. See, this is the dumb shit right here. There aren't two versions. Two versions of what? I realized that Paleolithic Hebrew isn't Greek. Who said that Paleolithic Hebrew was Greek? No one said that. You're just making claims at the crack your ass. I can't recall if the Book of Enoch had a different creation story. I do recall it going into when he goes up into the heavens and he sees all these different watchers falling. He gives you your war in heaven story comes from the Book of Enoch. I don't recall. I'm gonna have to read it again to see. I don't recall a different creation story out of it. Why do y'all think that y'all get some kind of leverage when you say stuff like this? You're teaching in English. I was born in America. I was taught English as a child. I grew up speaking English, speak a little bit of French and a little bit of Spanish, but that means hardly nothing to the conversation. What does that matter? What literally does that matter? And in today's world, if I took a manuscript, if you go online, you can grab one of the old manuscripts, it's all there, and you can have it, you can use translation programs to translate what it means in English. So what is your point? It's kind of like when the Hebrew Israelites want to run up and like, oh, if you can't read the Hebrew, then you don't know what you're reading. I don't need to be able to read it. I can just use a translating program and translate it. And you stupid motherfucker is sitting up here commenting in English. So I guess that makes you doubly ignorant. Stupid. I swear, isn't it funny how these people are supposed to be believing in this religion of love and peace and all this bullshit, but they are the rudest fucking people. And when they can't get their way, they resort to name calling because they are living with a childlike mind. You are a fucking child that I wouldn't even allow to scrape the bottom of my shoe after I walked in shit. Is how ignorant you sound in almost every comment that you have made. And they probably walk around living and breathing in the very culture that they claim they are so against. If you are so against this culture, why are you speaking in English, Jericho? Why aren't you talking to us in Paleo Hebrew? Huh? Why you don't have Paleo Hebrew coming up on the screen? You started calling me names first. No, the hell I didn't. If you're talking about when I was saying the difference between ignorance and stupidity, that's not calling you a name. I didn't. That's not calling you a name. And I don't even think I was talking about you at that time frame. But even if I was, there is a difference between ignorance and stupidity. And I myself said that I don't mind being ignorant of something because that's a known quantity that everybody has. We're all ignorant of something. Stupidity is when information is being presented to you, but yet you are unwilling to accept facts and still want to go with your delusion. So I don't even know what the hell you're talking about. And based on who I am, I never resort to calling anyone a name unless they first initiate it. And most of the time it's when they've done it more than twice because I have the patience to let that type of stuff float by. Exactly. He's like a Pan-Africanist who hates colonization but drive. It'd been better if they were driving a Ford. Anyway, what subject matter, because y'all know I'm at about 15%, 15 to 20 minutes of smoke. What intelligent conversation would you guys like to have? Because I would not allow my frequency to be disrupted by such people for only so long. Because evidently some people have issues. That's right, Lady Reese. Good vibrations. So how many of you have ever heard the story of Ruth, have ever understood the story of Ruth and Boaz in the way that we talked about it today? Or is today the first time you've ever thought about it or heard about it broken down in that fashion? Since y'all haven't brought up another subject matter yet. Norbert's first time. What are we going to do to bring change to free ourselves instead of having the same debate for the past 6,000 plus years? What we would have to move more into a real scientific understanding of how the universe functions, the and get rid of all religions. All these religions that still are based on some mythical being who did all these miracles and splitting oceans and all this kind of stuff. Once people stop and realize that those things and their science, that realize that their science doesn't match, that their moralities are less moral than the morals that we have today, that's when we'll start freeing ourselves. And hopefully we'll do that before we destroy ourselves, which will help prevent us from destroying ourselves. Yes. One of those is to realize that everything functions on cause and effects. This is why I study the Hermetic laws more than I study anything else. Because that is closer to our, based on our knowledge of the universe, how things function, how things act. But we're moving closer to that, although we are still far from it, because we still create these separators. We still have our racist thoughts. We still have our nationalistic thoughts. We still are basing things like intelligence on what a person looks like, if it's a male or female, and all these kinds of things. We separate ourselves over some of the most ignorant things that it makes it difficult for us to be able to actually raise our intelligence and raise our consciousness to a higher level. So yes, we have to get rid of stuff like, oh, we eat this bread and drink this wine and it becomes the body of this Jesus character, you know. Yeah, things like that. The choosing of the Dalai Lama next incarnation is based on babies picking up object. It seems flimsy. Exactly. Oh yeah, he picked up. This was the Dalai Lama's favorite pen, and this child was able to pick out the right pen. All this mystical hogwash has to be separated from our belief systems, and we have to move away from having belief systems and move more into having theories, hypotheses, estimations, and facts. We have to get past animal sacrifice. In Judaism and other religions, they still sacrifice animals, which is definitely a prehistoric practice. To believe that you can be cleansed by sacrificing some red heifers is one is a very Neolithic mindset, that the washing of a person or a society happens when you slaughter this animal who's perfect little red herring. I mean, not herring, red heifer. And that you would believe that some animal is able to do this based on some belief of a God that required you to sacrifice animals and people. You know, and then one of the hardest things for people to do is to live and let live. No, I have to be right. And you have to believe that what I said is right. And if you don't follow what I believe that I said is right, then you are less than. People have the right to believe whatever they want to believe. Now, you don't have the right to state beliefs as facts and expect other people to believe, to accept it. Now, facts should just be accepted based on the fact. I was trying not to use the word fact again. Based on the fact that they are proven, that they can be tested, observed. That is a fact. Like, it is a fact that I'm smoking this cigar, because all of you guys are observing the smoking of the cigar. So there is no belief involved, purely factual. You know what's funny, Debbie, is that Facebook gets the weird ones. more Facebook get more of the people. YouTube, they're less fanatical. Right. What kind of all-knowing God would require animal sacrifice or human sacrifice? It wouldn't. These are things that were created by man who created their own ideas of God and believed that sacrificing animals and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of like that superstitious. It's kind of like Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan wore his Duke. I think it's his Duke or his high school gym shorts under his shorts all the time because he believed that it gave him some type of edge instead of just looking at the fact of his mindset and his abilities and what energy he put into becoming the basketball player he was. No, he still carried this superstition with him. And many of these animal sacrifices and things of that nature happen because of some superstitions. I did a sacrifice and I had a good crop last year. Let me do another sacrifice every year for the crops. All these things come from superstition of man trying to understand the world around him. And instead of saying, well, don't know why that mountain keep on erupting and all the lava keeps coming out. Don't necessarily know why when I see these clouds, it always rain. We don't know yet. And one day we'll figure it out. But until then, we just don't know. I'm watching the cigar, believing there will be an exclusive and exquisite cigar sampling session. Sure. When we have our meet and greet event in November, I will make sure that those who want to go to either 4-9 or Cigar International, that we all go there and you can buy your own cigar. I'll teach you how to smoke the cigar. Right. And what kind of God would put his people against him? Even the idea of, and the story comes from Anu, when Anu saw that all of his children were fighting over rulership of the earth in different parts of the earth, that he then started giving out certain areas for people, for his children to be gods over. And then in the Bible, that is replicated by Elion giving out portions to the different B'nai Elohim. He basically pitting people against people. Exactly. And then your life wasn't living right if it didn't work. And you know, when I played sports, I used to have some of those superstitions. Like I hit a home, the first time I ever hit a home run, I realized the whole ritual that I did to get ready to come up to bat, I started doing that same ritual every time. Because in my mind, that's what got me the home run. Now, granted, I was what, 7, 8 years old? And you're the all powerful God. Why do you have to threaten people? Why do you have to like, oh, you're not obeying me, so I'm going to do this. Oh, you got some good pum pum from uh, them other women, them Moabite women, so I'm going to punish you, and I need all those men to die. And oh, you start worshiping a bull, I'm going to kill all of y'all for worshiping the bull. Oh, you took some of my silver and gold, I'm going to make the earth open up and swallow you and your whole family. Or you took some silver and gold and everybody got to stone you and kill you. Hasta luego, devil dog. Simplify. Got my Marine up here. Nope, not going to get into that conversation. Not going to do it. But when we do get to a point where people can just have their religions and then just going about their business, believe what they want to believe. Because I think it's going to be hard for man to get past where no one believes in a religion anymore. There will always be somebody who believes in a religion. But when it becomes at a level where the overwhelming majority of the population does not, then we can set moral laws based on a circular idea of just taking care of each other. And exactly what Raph just said, the biggest ones has to be the women. When the women let it go, as more and more women are walking away from these religions, the religion will die. It'll be like the Zoroastrians, where there's only like 300,000 of them. Yep, Jesus said, come to put a father against sons and daughters against mothers and tear up a household. Keep on working at it. Keep going. She did correct herself for y'all who might want to know. But yeah, about 5 minutes. The truth shouldn't have to be mysterious or hidden. Why not God reveals himself to mankind, humankind, clear as day? Eliminate the doubt and make it simple. Instead of all I see is religion, killing each other. Exactly. And it wouldn't, all you got to do is just show up. Now, granted, we would all think it was a hologram and it was blue beam, but there has to be a way that this guy can show up and let everybody know that this is God without all the bullshit. Exactly. It should be strange to you that the God of the Bible can only be satisfied through blood sacrifice. I mean, it truly identifies this religion as a blood cult. And even though at the end he was talking about, oh, then he got to sacrifice himself as a human sacrifice. I'll at least give the Muslims credit to say that their God just says, hey, I just forgive you. You ain't got to sacrifice no animals. Ain't no blood needed. Still don't accept their religion. Oh. It's an interesting thing. But they have to, people in religions have to validate themselves by making certain claims. They have to make the claim that their religion is real, and that their way to get into heaven and hell and all that stuff is the only right way, real way to get there. And then if you don't believe them, then you are just like devoid of that soul connection that allows you to believe in this God. You're just being ruled by the devil. If you ever walk away or leave their religion, then you were never really, in it to win it, because each one of their books says that if you were in it, you could never walk away from it, which is a good out to keep people conned into the religion. Because now when they see somebody walk away from it, they can say, oh, they weren't really Christian, they weren't really Muslim, they weren't really Brahmin, because they were able to walk away from it. But to be able to walk away from it just identifies something that they could do themselves, but they really don't want to. They're emotionally tied to this thing. So as long as their emotions are tied to it, they will figure out a way to justify somebody who speaks against it as that person being wrong, being antichrist or an apostate or something of that level. They claim he knows everything and gives you freedom of choice, but he never knew a person would not believe. There's nothing such as freedom of choice with the Bible God. No, there's not. They'll say that you send yourself, and I did a video about this yesterday, where they say that you have freedom, you send yourself to hell. No. According to your Bible, you either believe this God or you're going to hell. So there is no choice in that. See, freedom of choice would be able to say, well, I don't believe in you. I don't believe in your hell, so I'm not going to your hell. I may not go to your heaven either, but I ain't going to your hell either. Because since I don't believe in you, I have the freedom of choice of not going to your hell. But you got to think about this. If this God already knows everything, then he would have known that there were going to be a certain amount of people who were not going to believe in him. So you purposely allow for the creation of people that you know are going to go to this eternal lake of fire and be tormented for eternity. And you revel in it. If you were a good, loving God, you would never have created or allowed the creation of these people who would walk away from you, who wouldn't believe in you. There should not have been a freedom of choice if your goal was to have people believe in you. And if you wanted people to believe in you consistently throughout time, you should have presented concrete evidence and not require faith. The moment you required faith is the moment that you decided that you wanted people to burn in a lake of fire for all eternity. You didn't require faith for all those people that you showed up for when you was dashing, doing your plagues, when you was walking around with Abraham. You didn't require no faith. When you sent angels down to Balaam, you didn't require no faith. No, you showed up. If this God is real, he should have maintained a constant presence. And when people were doing things that were immoral, he should have been like, no, you're not going to do that. But he didn't. Not exactly what you mean by that. Started all religions? If you mean all religions, there is no book. It was man looking up at the sky and looking around at nature and creating gods for it. And that has to be the hardest walking away. Because when you preaching, and I'm assuming you were a good preacher, that you spent hours and hours and hours putting together your sermons, hours and hours studying. And to walk away from it still, that's difficult. Mm-hmm. You got to think about that in this. You got firstborn babies who just walking around in Egypt, minding their own business, sucking on their mama's tit, don't know what's going on, have no idea what's going on in the world, but yet they got to be murdered. That's a cruel, cruel ass God. Wait a minute. She's talking to somebody else. This is what I meant to hit. The Bible says you will you would know people by their fruits. The fruits of Christianity are horrible. But let's take that a step further. You have a mother that's living in Tibet. You have a father that's living in Tibet. They're good parents. They are kind to their neighbors. They take care of the animals. They live the entire life being good people, helping poor people, helping their neighbors, raising good children. Yet they're Buddhist. The fruits of those people is a wonderful thing, but they're Buddhist. So now they got to go and be tormented in a lake of fire. The flip side of that, you got this man, he decides that he likes the way people taste. So he spends half his life eating people, finally gets caught, goes to jail. He's in jail, starts reading the Bible, I guess, and then becomes a Christian before he's executed. He gets to go to heaven. Where's the love? Where's the love? But my cigar is done, so the show is done. I appreciate everybody for being here. We stayed on subject for about 45 minutes. It's about normal for y'all. Even though y'all tricked me last night and we stayed on subject for an hour and a half. Yeah, I know Pharaoh hardened God's heart, right? I mean, God hardened Pharaoh's heart. It's like he purposely wanted to kill everybody. But I appreciate you guys. Join me on May the 4th for our seminar. I'll post it in the comments as we break down the flood stories and show how the Noah's flood story is incompatible with history. So you can go there to where I just posted to click on the link. There's a few people who are already signed up. We'd love to see a lot more people sign up for it. We're gonna have a great time. Now, if there are true trolls on there, I will get rid of you. So if you are a true troll, it's all right if you disagree with some of the information. But if you're just trolling, I will kick you out and there will be no refund. So I look forward to us being there. Thanks everybody who is a member on YouTube. Thank you, Wrath, for giving away a free membership. Everybody who's a subscription holder on Facebook, thank you for supporting the channel. Everybody who shares the videos and go watch the videos that I posted earlier today. Appreciate you guys for your sharing, your likes, and your comments. Everybody who supports the channel this way, thank you very much. Those who purchase cigars from my wife, thank you very much as well. But y'all have a great night, and I'll see you tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And always remember that you have to free yourself to be yourself because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.